Welcome back to the Stormcast, everybody. This is the podcast where we talk all things TABC sports. My name is Ellie Hochberg. I'm here with my co-host and athletic director, Street coming back from Boca, Oren Glickman, and with head of TABC TV co-host, along with Noah Kessler, Jonathan Kaplan. We'll start with you, OG. You just caught a flight from Boca from a tournament. We'll talk about that a little later. How you doing? I just want to mention before I actually a little bit of a crazy time in school, as we maybe will get to in a little bit.
Do I look exhausted?
Very much so. Very much so.
The fact that I raced back from Florida for nothing. I'm doing this episode and then I'm crashing.
Yes, we all are appreciative for doing this episode. We'll get to what happened a little later. We're thankful for all that are dealing with it. But Jonathan, how are you doing? I heard you were at the game tonight.
Yeah, I was about to set up the stream tonight, and all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off. Like everyone was saying that they had smelled smoke, but it's just like whatever. Everyone's brushing it off. Rabbi Khan pulled the fire alarm, and it turned out to be a good decision because there happened to be like fire on the roof. But other than that, other than the excitement tonight, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, so I just want to pre-announce thank you to the TNX Fire Department, TVAC, BVAC, all of those helping out. We'll get to tonight's game. We're filming this on Tuesday night. But we'll start this in chronological order. Where we left off last episode, it was right before Wednesday night. Varsity basketball at Frisch. And listen, we don't like to harp too much on losses on this podcast. We're not a negative podcast, but this was a disappointing loss. There's no other way of putting it. They took an 11-point lead over Frisch. And then Isaac Stetner just took over the game. Shout out Isaac Stetner, sophomore, probably the best player on this Frisch team. Dropped 31-8. Oren, Jonathan, anything you want to say about this game and talk about it for a little bit?
I'm going to respectfully push back a little bit. Yes, it was disappointing at the time, but now looking back on it a week later, it was the first game back from break. So, not to take away from Frisch at all, I think they totally deserve credit for what they did pulling off that upset. And all's well that ends well because MTA lost to SAR, so we're still the 1 seed.
Yes, of course. I did not mean that. You're completely right. You're completely right to push back, Jonathan. And just add one more thing. TC dropped that 11-point lead and played them tight for the rest of the game. They listen. This is not the caliber of the TABC team that we've been seeing for the previous part of the year. But this first team's a good team. They could, with Isaac Stetner playing like this, they could go up with the best.
They could beat Hillel in the first round.
Completely, exactly. Isaac Stetner hit a baseline floater, I guess, the final seconds to give Frisch the win at 57-55 or something along those lines. Shout out Yona Mandel for just absolutely being a sharpshooter. Also, we could not miss from three in the first quarter. That was electric. If you were at the game, I think we were like 6 for 6 from three in the first quarter. That was awesome. But things cooled down from there. First figured out with our offense, I guess Isaac was awesome. And I guess this TABC team moved on. Anything you'd like to add, Jonathan, OG?
No, what I was gonna you kind of just touched on what I was gonna say is Mandel finally got hot for feels like the first time this year from deep, hit what six, 7 threes. He was amazing, but unfortunately we weren't able to pull off the late shot to tie it up there.
And
one fewer dribble, and I think we would have gone to overtime.
I mean, it's hard. Again, we're not here to hate on anybody. It's hard to hate on the Oregon when literally 1 second left in the game. Listen, I think there could have been other things done, but
and he's been great all year. He's been great
exactly. But I really want to give a shout out to Yona Mandel. I mean, if he could continue playing like this in the playoffs, this is like sophomore year championship game, Yona Mandel level.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
you're going to mention the fire jerseys that the throwbacks that they were wearing?
Oh yeah, so that was sick.
They weren't really throwbacks, Noak. They were like a new style Jordans,
Yeah, City Connects. They're yellow. So they wore the yellow jerseys, which is what they used to wear back in the day. Not back in the day, 2 years ago. Which is before.
Now they're superstitious, probably that they're not going to wear them again now.
I know. Someone's got to read Kadoshim. Low signing.
They should have worn them for senior night.
Exactly. No.
I wanted that. I voted in favor of that. I got outvoted by them.
Listen, they
should have done it, especially because then you get the mojo back with those jerseys.
Yeah. Yeah, but those are some. I'm personally pro the yellow jerseys. Listen, it's not my
I
call,
like
but
that.
I think it's like TVC, like black and white doesn't really feel TVC. That's why I honestly prefer the JV jerseys. We're not a jersey podcast, but JV jerseys that they feel more TVC with the blue. That's my personal opinion, but I
Either
digress.
either you love them or you hate them. Like,
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's fair.
A good thing for this varsity
But
team.
we're a Nike brand school. Make notice of that. We're all about Nike.
Nike, if you want to sponsor us, yeah, hit up Boca.
whatever.
The next night there was a massive doubleheader, JV varsity versus JC senior night for varsity, and this JV team was playing for the bye again. We don't want to harp too much on losses, but it was a disappointing loss. There's no other way to put it. They lost the bye. If they win, they would have been the 2 seed. Now they are the 4 seed. You have to play SAR, a team they lost to in the tourney today, which we'll get to a little later. Listen, it was a rough game. Different players torched us at different times of the game. Brazada torched us in the fourth quarter. Clara torched us in the third quarter.
Never even heard of him until that game.
Exactly. I mean, shout out to him, I guess. No one had them on the scouting report. I was speaking to somebody who knows the JAC team really well.
Right. I
He's
think
like,
a lot of people were under the assumption if you shut down Rosazada, you shut down JEC.
exactly. And we really did that for the first 3 quarters. But, Oren, do you have the final score on you? I don't.
67-51.
Yeah, that sounds right. Listen, it was a rough game. Anything you want to talk about from this game?
No, I just think it goes back to what everyone's been saying with Isaac Steppner not playing in JV this year. JV's really a crapshoot. Anybody could beat anybody. Um, it's just so unfortunate that it was there for the taking, and now they have a much more difficult path. You're looking at a home game against SAR, which is never a given, especially they're defending champs, so you can't underestimate them in that regard. And then you're potentially going to Flatbush. Listen, that's the hand you were dealt with, and they just got to plow through. And I still this is still a very young team. We saw it again in the way that they lost the game today against SAR. But there's listen. I think one thing that they'll have to their advantage is SAR is on vacation next week, so they'll have a real long time to prepare for this playoff game while SAR is vacationing. So should definitely use that to their advantage.
Yeah, and we have a
Exactly.
lot of film on them too. Like we played them three times now. Like
Right.
we
Also, maybe the fact that you haven't won, maybe the fact that you haven't gone 3 for 3 against them, and the fact that the most recent game going into this playoff game will be this contest in Florida, maybe it'll give you more motivation.
Yeah, I feel like if they were 3-0, they could have just like walked in, like just assuming that they're gonna win, not like practicing and got upset at home. So I wouldn't. The losses are never like good losses, but I wouldn't say this was the worst loss of all time.
Right.
Yeah. Especially the tourney loss against the tournament. Listen, it's devastating, but like it's a tournament. Come back in the playoffs, no one remembers it.
Exactly.
Moving on to the second game of the doubleheader, senior night. Oren, if you want to talk about a little bit of what the pictures that the seniors got, those were awesome. The gifts. But the point is that TBC was victorious over JC, not exactly the strongest team. Defeated them 59-32. Shout out Hanan Schultz, leading scorer on the team, tied with Ayal with 11 points. If you're a league pass me the graphic of Hanan. Not something I had on my bingo card at the beginning of the year, but shout out to him. He really played well, 3 threes. Yona, again, continued his hot streak. I mean, didn't play really the whole game. Only played really 3 quarters, and even that was mixed in. Had 10 points. Again, so that's what I was saying with continuing Yona's hot streak. Anything you want to talk about?
No, I think it was a senior night that was executed perfectly, unlike tonight. um,
But
uh,
tonight was kind of out of our control.
right, but I think one thing, and if there's one regret I have is that last year's senior night for varsity basketball was a game against Ramaz, and that game was going to determine who got the 1 seed. And, the fact that we were able to do this game against JEC, give all the seniors an opportunity to get their spotlight and play and have them play all 3 quarters. And then you go with the all junior lineup for the fourth quarter. I thought it was perfectly executed in that regard.
Yeah, I thought the all senior lineup was very nice. I honestly thought the all junior lineup in the fourth quarter. I know it was more so because like they were like that they trying to give some juniors who weren't going to get playing time, but it really felt like a signifying of the future. I felt like a little bit of like this is the team that we're going to see next year. A little
Right.
bit,
With the
obviously.
exception with the exception of Faber, because Faber was sick.
Yeah, of course. good to see him back. Faber,
Yeah.
just something. Faber was sick for the Wednesday night, Thursday night games. Jonathan Faber, someone who gets consistent minutes on this team. Typically, the sixth man coming off the bench. Again, that could
One
be
of the best shooters on the team.
exactly certainly a factor why they lost. Why they lost against Frisch. Not to say
Yeah.
that's the sole reason, but yeah. So it's good to see him back. He's been back in school the past few days. Shout out to him. Hopefully he'll be back. He should be back for the playoffs. Yeah, I don't know. But anything else you want to note about this doubleheader?
No, I mean, after that game, TABC were kind of in the waiting game to see what would happen the rest of the way, and they really got all the results that they could have asked for. Hillel finishing as the 3 and SAR finishing as the 4, and MTA dropping that game, so they end up as the 1. And now you have DRS and Megan David on the opposite side of the bracket, which is phenomenal news for them. And if assuming it goes straight, like, assuming that um Ramaz finish as assuming it goes straight, like SAR knocking off Ramaz and Hillel knocking off Frisch, you'll have SAR too on that other side of the bracket with both DRS and Mag and David.
Yes, so definitely, that would definitely a big win by
The
SAR.
path that they were given could not have been any easier, and now it's up to them to not blow it.
Pretty much the exact
Yeah.
opposite of what happened with JV basketball. JV basketball had an easy path, basically it's not easy, but easier path set up, and that got all messed up. And then varsity basketball basically had a much harder path, and somehow they ended up with the easy schedule despite them pretty much not doing anything. It's all
Right,
hands on
and
deck.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
that I'm not sure SAR would have given it to MTA had they beaten Hillel, because if they had beaten Hillel, they would have clinched the 3, and they wouldn't have had the motivation to help TABC. But I don't think they wanted to go into the playoffs on a 4-game losing streak, so that's why they decided to do some serious hurt on MTA in the last game.
Yeah, that was
Did you guys talk about how SAR dropped 50 in the first half or 47?
Yeah, the SAR really looked dominant against MTA.
Do you know what the Yeshiva League record for most points in a game is?
It's definitely more.
Ask Poppers, he's the math guy.
Text Poppers.
But I mean, Hopper
out
was
to you,
out for
Popper.
a little bit, so. But
Poppers is flying high right now. He just clinched the 1 seed for Ramon's JV
and also
basketball.
Thursday night, texting me corrections on the call while I was doing book. Shout out to him. He was watching the game. It's a massive, big game for him. I mean, see what he's playing. Texting me corrections about what announcers were saying. Big shout out to him. And we took a little bit of a break, not much of a break, basically a 48-hour break until Moses Chavez. We're not going to do a full-on playoff preview right now. I think we'll save that for maybe an episode later in the week or maybe next week, honestly. We could do a Wittenberg preview. So
the thing is, we can't really do a varsity preview because varsity hockey and varsity basketball both have buys.
I know.
We could preview TABC SAR JV ball, but I feel like we're going to do that anyway when recapping the Boca tournament.
Yeah, so
and,
we'll see.
And,
We'll figure
and,
it out as we go.
and JV hockey's not playing Frisch for a while.
I know. So I think let's wait a little bit to do a full-on preview. But like maybe we'll talk a little bit. I'm just saying we're not going to talk about the whole playoff bracket and everything. I'm saying I think that'll be for another time. But not to say we shouldn't talk about playoffs. Most of the was a big game for TBC Sports and for who TBC was playing and who TBC was not playing. We talked about TBC going to Hank on the last episode. Hank, one of the best teams in the league. They beat Skaki, very good player. Hank, we had said that game was going to be very difficult, going on the road. And at the same time, 20 minutes away from West Hempstead, on 5 towns, DRS JV was going to be playing Frisch JV to see who TABC would be playing. Assuming they beat Roanoke, which they did, in the playoffs. Turns out Frisch walloped DRS 8-1 or something. Shout out to Ellie Whitman, my friend, got a goal. But regardless, 8-1, meaning that TBC will be playing Frisch, which we'll get to in a minute. But varsity hockey just went out there and beat Hank, even though they were seemingly not on necessarily their A game. They had penalties. Benzion Kaiser went out there, got a hat trick. Ari Simon had 2 goals. Really just an overall, I guess, good game. Anything you want to talk about, guys?
They scored less than 6 seconds into the game.
So I was not there. I should probably mention that. I was not there. Rick was there. So that's right.
I was nuts to go there, too, with a 7 a.m. flight to Boca the following morning.
Yeah. And then now, you must have had, you had a wild 48 hours. Or not, more than 48 hours. But from like Moses
2 days.
Shabbos till like right now.
As some people say, I'm a unique kind of AD. I do things that non traditional ADs would do.
The past
Best
72
athletic
hours.
director in the country. That's what you are.
So yeah, it was a good game. I I think listen, it officially clinched our spot as the 1 seed. Um, these road games that require travel with decent teams like Hank are never a given. Even after we scored the first 2 goals of the game, Yitzhaki answered right back. And the thing about Yitzhaki is I get scared of him whenever he gets close to touching the puck. You know, he's one of, if not the best player in the league, and that's what keeps Hank relevant. Before Gash, while not getting the shutout, he did make some phenomenal saves, and a lot of those were denying Yitzhaki. And I want to fact check. In the last episode, we said that Forgash conceded 4 goals against Kushner. That's not true. Actually, he did not play the full game in that win.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Forgash, he's still given up 4 goals total because of the SAR loss, but in terms of Kushner, it's not a tied statistic there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So yeah,
Good fact check.
a gritty road win. And we were supposed to have our celebrations tonight with the seniors. That's unfortunately on hold right now. We're facing a lot of uncertainty if the game will even be played at this point. But yeah, and now it looks like varsity hockey will be hosting uh, YDE, North Shore, or Flatbush after their bye. I would say odds on the heavy favorite will be hosting Flatbush.
Yeah, again.
In fact, both varsity teams are in pretty good shape to be hosting both Flatbush teams.
And JV.
And
JV
yeah,
looks to
JV
be
going to Flatbush. Right.
Exactly. If only JV hockey. If only Flatbush had JV.
Flatbush don't have a JV hockey team, so there you go.
Exactly. All teams that Flatbush is in the league, we may play them in the playoffs. Might be a little bit of a rivalry going on for the playoffs. But so we'll talk about the Rambam game, not exactly chronological order. Then I guess we'll talk about what happened tonight, I guess, and then we'll talk about Cats because Cats is just the largest overarching thing. So Monday night, Oren, you weren't there. Rarity.
That was the one time. That was the one time I couldn't be Superman and be in 2 places at once.
Exactly.
I was there though.
But I was watching the entire game online, so I think I get points for that.
Yes,
especially since the game was over before we knew it.
You were one of our 5 listeners. Well, Azaria Tiger. Shout out to Azaria Tiger was reacting on the call.
Yeah,
So
we had a little bit of technical difficulties with this.
Yeah,
game.
Shout out Rafa Kaplan.
Hey.
So I guess it didn't work out. I guess it didn't work out with Hafter offering to disguise themselves as Rambam players and try to spoil the party.
Exactly.
Yeah. My thoughts on this game. I actually have one thought on this game because listen, I don't think you can take away too much because literally every team mercied Rambam this year. I don't think Rambam didn't get mercied in any of the games they played this season.
By the way, the game went down the whole game. I don't know if that's the way it was supposed to go, but it kept on going. Like it went the whole game.
But feel free to fact check me. I think Rambam got mercied in every game they played in.
I'm pretty sure.
We had running clocks.
They lost by more than 7 in every
second half of the game.
Right.
So in the middle of the second quarter, we had running.
But I do have one takeaway. I think if we had Cattler since the beginning of the season, we'd be looking at a different team that didn't have those struggles in the beginning and middle of the season.
Is Marty going to move back to being a forward now that Cattler's back?
Is who?
Marty.
That would make sense to me.
Just to know, Hafter was the only team seemingly that did not beat them by more than 7. They beat them by 6 when they played them one time. Every other team has beat. Again, we don't even disrespect Rambam, but just factually, what has happened.
Right. But also, the fact that Cattler's back now, that could give the team a spring in its step right now. You know, we have one of the best players in the league on our team now playing now. And that gives us the belief that we could go down to Frisch and, third time's the charm and knock them off this time. In fact, when we played at Frisch last time, we outplayed them, even though the score didn't reflect that.
Yeah. And just a note.
Without Cattler.
Yeah, just a few notes about the game.
Sure.
We didn't mention that Dean Cattler first game back. We did not know this was going to be his first game back. I don't think anyone knew that. I found out day of.
I found out less than an hour before. We had baseball practice before.
And it didn't look like he was being restricted in any way. It looked like he was full speed ahead.
Secondly, I'd like to.
He scored a goal too, off the back wall.
Two of them.
That's true.
I want to give a shout out to myself. I called. Dean asked me earlier in the day, how many goals am I going to score? I said 2, and I'm sorry. And something we were talking about on the last podcast is we weren't worried about not beating this team, or not we weren't worried about losing. We were worried about not scoring immediately and getting in trouble because of that. Because getting it, we would get stuck. We'd start stressing, start forcing shots, not getting the best looks.
The longer the game stayed tied, it was
shout
going to
out
be
Noah
more of an
Schwabel
issue.
for 24 seconds into the game, scoring a goal, and then
24. I thought it was 8 or whatever.
I don't know. I'm just looking at the stat sheet.
And then he scored with
Honestly, even when your team
30
is
seconds later.
even when you're watching your team online and they're cruising and the game's already out of reach, it's still hard to continue watching even when your team is playing well. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like how do you keep the intrigue, the interest going when you know the game's already over?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you get people.
Fair point.
That's how you get Azaria Tiger on the mic.
I mean, there's only 6 people watching the whole game anyway, so.
No, we went up to 11 once Azaria.
It's so funny though because everybody knew that we needed to win this game to officially clinch our spot in the playoffs. So everybody knew the stakes, but they knew it was Rambam. Not to knock off Rambam, but they knew the level of our opponent, and fans still didn't come to make a pit.
Exactly.
There was a solid
Aiden
5
Rousman
people there. There's a solid 5.
Aiden Rousman was there?
Aiden Rousman was there for a little bit.
He was there for a bit. He was there because basketball practice had just ended, so I came to check on what's going on.
I mean, still, that's awesome. Just a little scoring summary because legit, not everyone, but a lot of people got on the board. It's really cool to see people who aren't.
And everybody got to play.
Exactly. Yeah. It was really cool to see players who's not necessarily going to play. You get to start to play. Schwabel scored 2 goals in his first shift. Ridiculous. Jake Rubenstein had both assisted by Ari Scholhoff. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys who might necessarily, Schwabel plays, but a lot of guys who might not necessarily be getting the most playing time really made the most of their opportunities.
I think almost every kid on the team has gotten a goal this year. I know a couple haven't, but I think almost everyone has.
So Schwabel had 2. Then Jake had a beautiful breakaway goal. Rosner had 1. Shout out to Noak's boy.
That's +5 in Rabbi Alvin's class.
Adine had 2. One of them was off. I can't remember exactly.
It went off the back wall.
So that was one of them. One of them went off the back wall. Shout out AJ Mandel. He thought he scored 1. But sorry,
AJ Mandel started. It looked like.
He thought he scored 2. Sorry, yeah. AJ Mandel scored a goal. Zach Fields had a beauty of a goal, and then a second one also. Cowler had a second one. I don't remember exactly where it was on the court, but it was very nice. Scholhoff had a goal assisted by Jacob Schmutter. Shout out Jacob Schmutter. Shout out to really those guys who really, we don't into the disc. Shout out to a lot of these guys who really haven't gotten on the court. Jacob Schmutter, Adib Rimberg, Busha Adler, a few others that really made the most of their opportunities.
No, it's good because I think that could be the last time they see the court. So
Popowitz got a goal there.
Popowitz got a goal in the end. Winkler got a goal. Goldwasser had 3 assists. Very, very nice all around.
I still don't think he scored a goal yet this year though.
Goldwasser did not score today, and I don't think he scored all year. But whatever, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Shout out. The main shout out is to Ian Mandelbaum getting his I think first playing time of the year, pitching a shutout.
A co-shutout.
Yeah.
It's not baseball. He's not pitching a shutout.
I know.
I kind of wanted Rambam to score 1 goal, so I could have written the article and use a Mighty Ducks reference if people understand 12-1.
Someone understands.
It was 13 though.
That's when they lost to Iceland in the second movie, 12-1. All right. Before your time, I guess.
No, I watched Mighty Ducks. I just don't remember the exact scores. I remember they got crushed. So, okay. Besides the point. Tonight, a little bit of an adventure. Game I guess was about to start. I was not there. I was
there.
I was not.
So
I was there.
Jonathan,
I got back from the airport.
No, you got there.
So
I got back from the
Jonathan and you guys take the story. I can take it from there.
Okay, I got back from the airport at 7:05 p.m. Took a 5-minute shower, organized all my belongings for the ceremony tonight and everything. And then as I'm pulling up, I can't get into the lot. So I'm assuming, okay, the school's probably like burglarized or something, or somebody fake pulled the fire alarm.
I like
and people kept calling me, but like I was in the dark just as much as anybody else.
Okay,
I don't even know if Rabbi Khan really knew what was going on, other than that there was a smoky smell and it wasn't going away, which is why he ended up pulling it.
Right.
So
And then
Rabbi
turns
Khan
out there
pulled a
was a
fire
fire on the
alarm.
roof.
Listen, we don't
I
want to
think the main
speculate. Like, we don't want to speculate. What we know is that there's a fire. The fire department's dealing with it. I stopped by earlier. I think I wasn't going to school, but when I was coming back, I passed the school. Stefan Jonathan Hausdach. He
He was
yeah,
still
there's
there.
no. He was driving me. He was driving me.
No,
we
so I
passed
had
the
left
school.
at about like 7. I had left at like 7:50. Like once they had officially canceled the game, so I could go catch Marv. I actually drove Noah home, but
You shout out to Jonathan Kaplan for getting his license. Shout out.
okay. But we were just trying to figure out what was going on. Like it was just kept more fire trucks kept coming. Like no one really was telling us what was going on. They obviously were telling Mo, but like it just like wasn't getting relayed all the way down. But I think the biggest issue is that kids weren't able to get back into the building. Like I know specifically Shoma Winger, he had his phone, his keys, his wallet,
I think some of the
computer, his
Kushner players
gun.
too had
That's I think that's gonna
belongings.
be the biggest issue is that they had all their stuff inside. Like how we have to find a way to get their stuff to them.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's
like
really
No, there's a lot of
everyone has
uncertainty right now, and
almost everyone has their phone in school.
yeah, Max Jones in school. Yeah, thank God I
Me
have my
too.
computer
Like,
at home.
WhatsApp web, that's the way to go.
but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I think
so
they're
Right.
still
Well,
trying to figure it out.
technically, tonight is officially the last day of the season.
So
yeah,
are we gonna be able
tonight is the last
if
night
this
of
game doesn't get made
Well,
up?
it doesn't
Is it
affect us because we already had the one seed locked
Yeah.
up. But Kushner needs
I
to
think
play the
Kushner's playing
game.
for a home game.
Kushner's playing for a home game because if they were to somehow beat us, they would climb MTA and they would host MTA as opposed to MTA hosting them.
So Oren
if
as AD? Sorry.
If this game weren't happen, would we do like a ceremony or whatever at the beginning of the playoff game?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah,
People
also
do that, by the way. That's not an uncommon thing. People have had
Well, I mean,
senior nights.
if you have like the one seed locked up, like you're getting one home playoff game, like
Right. And honestly, that team that they could be playing in the first round after their bye could be a much weaker opponent than Kushner and give even more of a chance to seniors to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, and I was telling the director.
I think Flatbush is not. I think Kushner's a lot is a much better team than Kushner's a much better team than Flatbush.
Kushner's probably the fourth most talented, by far the fourth most talented team in our division.
James Orbach's one of the best players in the league.
Exactly. It goes in our conference. It goes us, SAR, Frisch in no particular order. Even though that's how I think the order is, but regardless.
And Kushner take SAR and Frisch tight a lot.
Exactly. So they're by far the fourth most talented team in the conference.
I think even if Kushner were to go to MTA on the road, they would beat them easily. That's just my opinion.
I agree. They got a rough draw playing us twice SAR.
But then they'll have to go to DRS.
Yeah. Yes. So hopefully everything will be all right.
You guys skipped the Boca tournament.
Yes, we're gonna do that last. We did that on purpose because that was probably the longest. And a lot more to discuss there. So hopefully everything will be all right. We'll see if we're gonna be in school tomorrow. No, I'm not gonna speculate. It's not gonna come out until tomorrow or late tonight anyway. But back to the Boca tournament, or going to the Boca tournament Sunday morning. This TABC team went to Boca. This JV team. Oren, you want to tell us a little bit about the tournament? I'll just give a brief summary. They went 2-1 in seeding games.
Pool play,
whatever they call it. Then they made it to the semis, played SAR tight, but unfortunately lost in overtime.
No, listen. First-time participants. I was very honored that we got the opportunity to compete in a tournament that the school's never been to in its history. So that was a cool experience. Can't complain about the weather, obviously, compared to -4 degrees in Montreal. And listen, started off great with a win on opening day against North Shore, and then who are probably going to be the lowest seed out of the other conference in the playoffs. So they're if they were to somehow advance, I think they would play Ramaz in the quarterfinals. And then day 2, we had 2 games. Gave Frisch a great game. We're in fact down by 8 at halftime, I believe, and then we took a 1-point lead going into the final quarter. Karasik had a big 3 at the top of the key. I think we did enough to
No,
win the
I think we
game.
were up one. We were up one going into the fourth.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what you said.
my bad.
Yeah.
I thought you said we were down one.
I
I guess
think
before the three.
I
Yeah.
think we did enough to win the game. But there were two specific moments that I look at. Tani Stein lost the ball out of bounds, which Frisch capitalized on, and then I think Frisch missed the second free throw attempt, and Adams lost the handle on the ball, and then Bromberg got it from him, and Bromberg got the putback and won.
Yeah.
So though, if you
Yeah.
recall, so those are the moments, those are the mental moments. Those are moments that you go back to, like when you lose the ball at those junctures in the game, you can only blame for yourself for why you lost the game. And it goes back to what we've always said. This is a very talented team, but they're a very young and inexperienced team. We don't have and this is not a knock on our sophomores. We don't have experienced sophomores because a lot of the sophomores on our team, like Lowe and Haberman, they didn't see the court a lot last year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
You
earlier in
know,
the season they did, but like for like
right?
the
But I'm talking
playoffs
about
against
last year's
CRS.
fresh.
Yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about last year's
I know.
freshmen.
Yeah.
Also, the thing is with this tournament, you do need veterans. You need leadership to really come through because these tournaments have playoff vibes, and I think that's what happened in the SAR semifinal game today on why they lost.
I think it's good though. I think it's something that they can look at and like work on before this playoff game. I think it will, as you said, it's like a playoff game. I think it will give them some
Correct,
experience
and I think the
for
fact
what to
that
look forward to in the
right,
playoffs.
correct, and I think
So
the fact that it's a home game against SAR as opposed to us going to SAR
exactly,
definitely makes us favored.
like we'll have the pit hopefully going
Yeah,
and
but
rock it.
playoff time attracts a pit.
Yeah,
And
that the game at first. I'm hoping we get a crazy pick going. I mean, of
yeah,
course, all
varsity
right.
hockey will pull up. Will lead there. Um,
Yeah.
JV hockey, I'm hoping is good though.
OG, how
yeah,
much pressure do you think is on the current sophomores now, knowing that this might be their only opportunity to win a championship? Because next year you're gonna
because Isaac Steppner will be a senior in 2 years, is what you're saying.
yeah, Isaac Stebner and Munoz on the same team in 2 years. Is gonna be
I don't think TABC is the only team looking at it that way. I think every other team is looking at it that way too. That
well, especially
this is your chance to win a banner and put an asterisk on your banner. One JV championship in year Stepner moved up.
well. Also, you're gonna have to play SAR next year, who they have Halbert.
Correct, but we're talking about 2 years from now.
Yeah,
We're
well,
talking about yeah,
these current sophomores, this is probably their only opportunity to win a championship.
Correct. I
The
agree.
freshmen have next year.
Correct. Oh,
uh,
and I forgot in between that SAR and Frisch game we
yeah,
had
Shell
it. We shall have that. Shall have it.
Here at the end.
Interestingly, do not put any investment into their JV program. Any talented freshmen sophomores they move up right away to varsity, which stood out to me when watching the Shellhevet team. And then we finished on a high note against Cats for third place. The fans were actually there for the first half, but then they saw that we were pulling away, so they started walking out. And I thought that game was great in the sense that everybody got to see the court
The
Yeah,
Storm
so
versus the
did
Storm.
and play some
did
valuable minutes.
yeah,
So,
so
so
I
if you would
didn't
ask me about if you would ask me about finishing third place or losing to Frisch in the finals, I don't know. I actually think if we beat an SAR, I think we would have had a real shot at beating Frisch in the final.
yeah,
So
we
I mean,
already
we
We'll
beat
never
Fish.
know.
We
We'll never
beat
know.
Fish one time this year. Anyway, like they
Right.
beat us by 25 one time. We beat them by 25.
and then we
Right.
lost by
And then we lost
like
I
by
will say
4 or
though,
whatever it
I
was
talk a
yesterday.
lot about needing experience and coming up in the big moments, but Frisch's clutchest player is Munoz, who's a freshman.
saying. I think some players like come in with experience, like weirdly enough, like meaning like they just have like a clutch. Like I mean, like they just gain experience on the fly, like a regular. Like, they don't need a year to develop. It's more so just
Right.
like, I don't
But
know.
listen, this Boca compared to the Yeshiva League, this Boca does not compare in terms of prestige, So I think if we beat SAR in the first round of the playoffs, I think it'll totally whitewash that loss in Boca.
I mean, yeah, we saw.
Yeah.
We also saw that like three of the top four teams there were Yeshiva League teams. Only other team being Cats.
Right. There
And
are
I
Um,
only
mean,
3 out of town schools.
I know, and two of them did not make it. Um,
if you think about it, this JV team was the last undefeated team in the league.
Right. But that
Yeah,
also had a lot to do with who they had in the beginning of their schedule.
Yeah.
it's true, but they still like
I don't think they
it's
would have
still a
had
very
the
talented
I don't
team.
think I don't think they would have had the confidence that they have now if they hadn't started the season against teams like Heschel, MTA, and Kushner.
Yeah,
Certainly, certainly. So just to live a little, what we're going into playoff time. JV basketball going to be playing at home versus SAR. JV hockey probably a little break because championships like March 16th, right?
You have plenty of time to get the
Li-
game
li-
in because
you,
you're only scheduling one playoff game.
it could literally be
JV
March.
hockey had the hardest road to get into the playoffs, and now they have the easiest road to get into the
yeah,
championship.
yeah.
You can literally
I
schedule
think
the game in
Hofburg said
over
that
a
last
month
night
from
on the
now.
stream.
Yeah. You could literally schedule the game for March 15th. Obviously, we're not going to do that tonight before the championship, but like you could do that, meaning that like that you'd be ready for the championship.
Hoff,
Meaning,
which playoff game are you most excited for?
so I'll just finish saying the playoff games.
I think it's got
But
to be JV hockey only because it's
yeah,
the only first TABC playoff matchup we have on the docket right now.
exactly, and
Yeah,
also seeing the redemption of this JV
Because
team.
varsity basketball, I don't think you'll see a first TABC matchup. JV basketball, potentially. It's too early to tell. No, I don't think so
I feel like
because
it'd
they'll
be
be on
there. Need to
opposite
be
sides
like
of the
it
they'll
need to
be on
be like
opposite sides of the
championship.
bracket.
So
It
this is
need to
the
be
last TBC
championship.
first game of the year,
Right, potentially
Uh,
right.
unless Farachek.
but
And
this
varsity hockey, I don't think it's likely that maybe. Oh well, actually, Frisch is the three, so
the semis maybe, right?
maybe. Yeah, I don't know
Wait,
But
what?
yeah, it's
Wait, why
certainly
would it
exciting.
be semis?
because
Aren't
they're
we
the
the
three
one?
and we're the one.
So if three
Oh,
beats
right.
two,
Three
Yeah,
beats the six, they go to the
I mean,
two.
they
So
beat
that would mean Frisch has to go to Hank.
Hank's. Wait, where's DRS?
Hank is
They're actually
two,
one.
DRS is one. DRS and TABC are on
Oh,
opposite
three
that's
sides
goes
of
out
the
of
to
the
the
bracket.
bracket.
two,
Yeah,
and then two
yeah,
plays,
I forgot
and the
about
winner of
that.
that
Yeah.
game plays the
Right.
one.
So Frisch can go down to Hank and beat them. And then they would come to
Um,
us.
Yeah, but that's a long way down the road. That's certainly after seeing. I think that the answer is that JV hockey game.
Also, this JV
After seeing the
hockey.
redemption after last year going into this year, and there's something I said in the stream last night. I don't know if you could hear it because our mics were faltering, but this team we've kept on counting out. I mean, it's not that because like we're just like dumb and that we're just like, oh, like this team we've never believed in them. They lost to Hafter. They tied with SAR. They lost to Frisch. They lost to DRS. I felt like it was all over. They needed to beat one of Frisch and SAR and beat YDE, who at the time YDE looked really good, and then beat Rambam and MTA, which again look easy in retrospect, but considering and how we were playing at the time, it doesn't look so easy.
Listen, not to I agree with you that I think most TABC students will be excited about the JV hockey playoff matchup. But that shouldn't belittle the SAR TABC JV basketball playoff matchup either.
Oh, of course,
No.
That's also gonna be a really good one.
One more
exactly.
thing on the JV hockey team, though. I think they're a very talented group of guys. They just haven't like played together. They've all tried to be the star player as opposed to play as a
Uh,
coherent team.
yeah, and honestly, they're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose at this point.
Exactly. Like they were taking a lot of dumb penalties. I remember specifically against DRS where they got into a couple of fights. They were taking dumb penalties, and that was a game that they really could have won. That had they not taken those dumb penalties and set themselves up in that way,
And this,
Honestly,
and this
if
they could have won.
Catler's 100% going into this game, TABC could really go in favored.
favored. That's a big finish. I don't
Yeah.
know favored, but I respect the hot take. That's a hot take, and I respect it. I don't
I don't
necessarily
know. Charlie
agree, but
Butler is very, very good.
Caller certainly gives us a leg up, and I'm interested to see how the rotation changes with Caller. It's a little hard to see for Rambam. That's what I'm
Right.
really interested in because like I feel like we've become to know the rotation, meaning like whether maybe a little bit of changes on first line or second line, but meaning like because Cutler's back, someone's going to be moving from second line to third line, basically. And the question is, who's that going to be? Because second line to third line is probably the biggest drop off in playing time, or third line to who's going to be going from third line to fourth line. Someone's got something has to move, and that's what I'm interested to see. Again, I don't mean this in like a human interest way, but like
I'd say maybe Brothman as I'm assuming that Marty's like going
again, it's a
back
little
to
hard to know
forward.
what will happen exactly. Will Marty go back to
if Marty goes
yes.
back, then he'd probably play with Jake, meaning Allen and Solomon are together, probably I'd say on the second line. So Brothman probably falls down to the third.
From first, you think that's what I'm saying? Like it's all hard to know.
Exactly. It's like
Does Marty even move back to offense? We don't know that's going to be true.
True.
It's a lot of speculation, and I think we're all going to be interested. This team's going to have a lot of practice before this first game. That's the good thing about this. Like they're not going to have to play like 5 games to get the championship like JV basketball. They can figure it all out before that first game. They can decide what works best. They can try out new things in practice. That doesn't work, try something new. So that's the good thing about this.
They could get like a good. They could get a good like 5-6 practices in before they play that game.
Exactly. So they
Yeah.
can try out Marty on offense, or they could try out Brockman on second.
You know, because the
Jake
league
on-
is very tight with getting games in by a certain date with deadlines. JV hockey has so much flexibility because it's only one game to schedule.
So my
Well, one
question for you,
game for each
Oren,
side of the
is
bracket. But
have
yeah.
you started thinking about like have you started speaking to SDR or Fresh or anything like that?
I haven't really touched the varsity teams yet because I don't even
I
know.
mean, obviously they have buys.
I don't know who they're playing yet. In regards to SAR, we were both just in Florida, so
Mhm.
we were like, let's just enjoy ourselves right now, and we'll discuss it when we get back. I actually made a joke and jest. Let the semifinal game count towards the playoff game too. But now I'm not so sure I want to offer
Yeah.
that.
keep the score. Honestly,
Yeah.
not so bad considering we only lost by like 2, like whatever we lost by.
Also, we
Uh,
didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that play at the end by the refs.
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Not
Yeah.
why we lost. Not why we
No.
lost. We
No, but
blew
I
it.
thought
We
it was
still choked.
yeah.
Yeah,
They had
But
a
I
9-point
think
lead
that's a
with 2.5
problem.
minutes to go.
those
I think
refs, I don't know how you miss a call like that.
listen, I don't mean
It's right
I
in
think
front
this
of
is
you.
kind of a
Like,
problem.
yeah.
I think people point.
Hey,
I
human
think there's a
error.
problem.
Human error.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think people point to one thing and say that's the reason why we lost. That's the reason why we lost. And I don't think that's
No,
true. I
when
think
you're up
that
by 8 with 6 minutes left,
exactly
It
people.
was
I don't
9
mean
with
this as
like
a
two and a
shot to
half, I
anyone, but
think.
like that's a bad shot. You shouldn't have taken it. That's the reason why we lost. No, you blew
Never
an
blame the
8-point
games
lead.
on. Never blame the game on the refs.
Yeah.
That's a loser's mentality. If you always
oh,
blame the refs,
I'm right. I'm just saying the refs still missed a critical call at the end.
Oh,
yeah,
certainly,
but
certainly.
you shouldn't put yourself in a position
It
at the
doesn't
end of the
matter.
game when you guys are
Exactly.
gonna miss a call.
We shouldn't have been there with the
We
lead
should
we
have been in
had
that
with
position
7.
because we should have closed it out in the fourth quarter. Yes.
Exactly, and no one. That's what I'm saying. Like people, this is a problem. I think it happens in every sport. Where like that specific one tiny thing that happened is the reason why we lost. When there's a million other things that happened in the first quarter that could have made a difference. People only remember the fourth quarter. So
Yeah. It's
whatever.
like, oh, you hit one shot here, you don't foul
Exactly,
here. Like,
exactly.
one thing I did notice though is SAR is a very good free throw shooting team. Like they hit almost all their free throws down the line.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying that this was a really bad year for SAR, but they beat Frisch in their regular season finale. They proved that they can go up against anybody.
Exactly. It seems like I said almost had, like, a little
What
bit
was
of.
the score of the final today? Like, was
They
it a
they
close
lost to
game?
Frisch by 6.
Yeah, so it's a close game. Like they're a good team.
Yeah. So
Just because it's down from like what we've come to expect from SAR doesn't mean that they're a bad team.
I
They're just
agree. I
not
agree.
a superstar team.
I still like our chances of getting them back in the playoffs.
Yeah.
so we've rambled on for a while. I
Yeah,
think
we're at the
we'll start.
45-minute mark, and I really got to get some sleep,
So I
guys.
think I'm just gonna wrap up. I think next week we'll maybe do an episode preview Wittenberg, which is gonna be next weekend. Preview maybe or have more updates about playoffs and stuff like that, like when we can expect the games, what's happening in the varsity, who's looking going to play if the game is if it's set, and the like. Maybe we'll have an interview. Thank you for Jonathan Kaplan for joining. Not our typical
Yep.
guest.
Thank you for having me on.
Any final notes you want to share, Oren, about this week or what's coming up?
No, listen, I think we already know the JV matchups, so all that needs to be done now is scheduling those matchups. And in regards to varsity, I think we'll just be paying attention to the first round in each. We'll be paying attention to, I think most people will be paying attention to the North Shore Flatbush matchup in varsity hockey. And in varsity basketball, I think most people will be paying attention to Flatbush YDE.
Okay. So, Jonathan, you want to wrap things? You want to have anything to say right now?
Nope. Just thank you guys for having me on. Always, it's been a pleasure.
The first of many appearances, God willing.
Hopefully.
Thank you all for listening. We were about to hit the 45-minute mark. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with a little bit more of a preview for Wittenberg and playoffs.